you should assume that it's heading to somewhere exciting. And if you assume that, then why wouldn't you want to use this opportunity in the early days to learn more and be one of the early pioneers in a space that is growing very fast?
It is very, very new, and I guess, echoing what you said, I guess Luno was really, had a tough time, since you started, and I guess, with regulators and stuff. And, Marcus, to that question, right, it's been a long journey on your side, even though it's just 2013. But you've had many ups and you've had, I guess, many downs as well. And especially in terms of, when it started as a small little, I guess, company doing cryptocurrency to now maybe accepting as a global acceptance, right? In your opinion, with more regulators from around the world providing clarity for cryptocurrency companies to operate, what does it say about the future of cryptocurrency industry itself?
Thank you. I think that was it's an excellent way to describe cryptocurrency and blockchain, generally speaking, about this exciting future where we're all headed. And of course, it is new, it is potentially risky, so we all have to be very careful that we don't, overdo it. I think and part of our role in Malaysia is to educate people to make sure that we do things in a proper way. Part of that is regulation. I think we are dealing essentially with a technology that impacts people's lives, whether it's going to be blockchain changing business processes or cryptocurrency providing new alternatives to finance. It is essentially very large scale impact. So doing it in a responsible way is incredibly important. So I do think that there's only one way to move forward, and that is in a highly regulated environment. And as we start seeing that regulation being built around the world, it will give a lot more certainty, not just to consumers, but to a lot of businesses that also are interested in deploying this type of technology. And I think if you look at many other technologies or asset classes, it's not really retail or consumer driven, it's actually institutionally driven. And for many institutions, that regulatory certainty is almost like the final hurdle before they can move forward. So I think we will see this as a catalyst, not just to strengthen the consumer market, but also bring a lot of new players into the arena. And Malaysia is going to be a fantastic case study for this.
Any questions on the floor? If you have any questions, please do raise your hands. We have a gentleman at the corner. If you can get the mic. We have a mic from you.
How soon will your adoption be, and when it come up, and what's your consideration for onboarding these new currencies?
So I'll grab that one. I think what Surina was also alluding to is that we have to realize that we are at the beginning of a very long journey here, right? It's not we're not going to wake up on Monday and it's going to be like boom, everyone now start using cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin or Libra or a government issued ringgit currency. So I think we have to keep in mind that this is a learning process and it's still going to take some time. I think some people get a little bit overexcited about it, but at the same time, we can see it moving forward, and it is transformational. So in terms of, when will things go faster, and, is it going to be driven by China or other countries? I guess we'll find out as time goes along. But I do think we are talking broadly about a generational change. It's not, again, something that, is a flash in the pan that's going to happen overnight. But again, every day, even for the last 5 or 10 years, every day more and more people are buying cryptocurrency, more people are doing projects on blockchain. So the industry is moving forward, a little bit slower than what some early adopters want, but a lot faster than what a lot of skeptics think. So it's somewhere in between those two places, if that's helpful.
Yeah, and the other thing about technology in general, it goes through a phase where the early stage, when you're developing, testing, that might take a little bit of time. But once you actually get to its full maturity, it grows really fast. And so that's one of the other reasons why it's really important to continue to research, develop, experiment, because technology scales very quickly, and we need to be progressive as it relates to not just on the technology development side, but how technology fits into in this case, when you think about cryptocurrencies, usually there's the virtual world and then there's like the real world. And so how does that mix together? And in this case, that's why progressive regulation and education is really, really important. And maybe touch a little on some of the advocacy and education work that we were talking about that you guys do behind stage just now.
Yes, I think that's very important. It's, it is a new technology, and we do a lot of things all over the world, including Malaysia, to try and bring that type of education to people in a relevant way. So, for example, if you go to the Luno website, there's a learning portal. You would have seen some of the videos play outside, but we really try and get normal people to explain the concepts of blockchain and cryptocurrency in a normal way that a normal person can understand. Not, sometimes when you read about it, you hear about decentralization and all kinds of words that sound very, confusing. And so part of what we as a company do is we simplify that messaging, certainly for consumers, but then we do a lot of work on educating regulators. So we run workshops, not just with regulators in Malaysia, but many other countries. We do a lot of education for financial institutions and their compliance teams. We do the same for law enforcement. So wherever there are stakeholders around the world, we try and do that education and bring in as objective view as possible. But again, it's not something we can do by ourselves. We need all of you, the press, to write objectively about the industry and look at the facts and report those facts. And so there's many stakeholders that are together working on this, but hopefully we can be a catalyst for doing it in a responsible way.
Education is important because I think for a lot of people, this would be, cryptocurrency would be their first foray into any kinds of investment per se. And, because the stock markets, the traditional way of investing could seem a little bit, I guess, alien, and cryptocurrency is more like the sexy kind of new thing of investment. So you would get, I guess, a lot of new investors, first-time investors into an industry like cryptocurrency. So education on your end is, I guess, number one priority.
It is number one priority because it is a moral responsibility for us as a company to make sure that people aren't told the wrong thing, because as we know, in any new technology, there's always going to be people that are taking a chance or trying to scam people, and so it's important that we present the facts forward and to people so that they can make good judgments and make the right decisions. It's very interesting that you mentioned about people using cryptocurrency before trading other instruments. And by the way, these were not scripted questions, so I didn't know you were going to ask it. But when we started, we thought a lot of our users were already buying gold or some other commodities, and then cryptocurrency was kind of the next thing that they go into. But it turns out, when we spoke to a lot of our users, it is really the first time that they've done something like this. Sometimes because they're young millennials and they believe in wanting to be part of the future, but also many older people that actually thought, this is an interesting thing to participate in. And I think, a lot of it is the excitement about the future, but another factor is that in some sense it is, despite Bitcoin and blockchain, it can be quite complex when you dive in deeper. But also, if you just, on the surface, if you use a product where, you can just buy this one thing or two things, it actually makes it very simple in a weird way. It's not as confusing as going on a share platform where there's 200 company shares and you don't know which one to buy and so on. So I think, that is an interesting opportunity, but at the same time it comes with a lot of responsibility, and of course that's where the regulation and the education is paramount.
I only asked it because I'm actually one of those where, I invested in cryptocurrency before actually, deciding to, maybe I should invest in, stock markets and diversify itself, right? So, any questions? We have a question, gentleman on the second row at the front, if you could get the mic.
Hi, that's Bilal. Vincent here from FinTech News Malaysia. So I have one question for Surina and one question for Marcus. So for Surina, as a development agency for Malaysia, what initiatives are you guys looking at to support the growth of digital assets and cryptocurrency? And for Marcus, as a founder, and I think Luno has had quite a difficult journey in Malaysia, given the lack of clarity earlier with the regulation and the banking partner pulling out. So as a founder, I want to understand the thinking behind remaining in Malaysia and kind of sticking to it to launch again in Malaysia.
Thank you for that question. So your question around what are we doing as far as developing just digital economy, blockchain in general, what's MDEC's role? And so for us, I'll explain it this way. So our role, we're an agency that's been around for 23 years. We were founded when It was kelapa sawit in Cyberjaya and Putrajaya. There was nothing there. So the mandate really was to build a technology industry, to help build a technology industry. And so today, fast forward, we've got, where we've seen some of the development the impact that we've been able to create. And so today, as you think about what do we do, I would simplify that as, I would think of it as A, B, C, D. So we play these roles. A, we help advocate policy and strategy. So that's why in the case of cryptocurrencies, for example, we work very closely with the regulators and the policymakers to help advocate for development, because we're a big believer that innovation and technology is needed in Malaysia. So we advocate policy. 2B, we build ecosystems. And so what we mean by that is, what don't we have? What does the country actually need? Do we need crypto exchanges? Let's go find players to do that. Do we need developers? Do we need cloud service providers? What else does the country need to build the ecosystem? So we do that. C, and it's a very important role that we really didn't realize how important it was until mid through the year. We realized that, wow, yes, we connect communities. And what do I mean by that? When we're trying to, so technology, digital, what is it at the end of the day? What is that core product? It's change. And so whenever you're trying to experience change, you're trying to learn something new, experience something new, and the best way to do that is to do that together. And so that's why building community, like we play a big part of that, between the conferences that we run, the workshops, the boot camps, our accelerators and whatnot. That's all about building community. And events like this is really important because from time to time you pause what you're doing and you bring the community together and celebrate success, compare notes, and then we continue to do on. And I hope after today, you all will continue to exchange cards and we'll continue to have the conversation going, because building community, tech community, the blockchain community, and crypto community, that's really important in driving change. And finally, D, we drive growth through specific intervention programs. And so we've run, we will continue to listen to the needs of the market, of the industry, of our constituents, to find opportunities to actually, to spur growth. In certain areas, we might be driving specific training programs. In certain areas, we would be, joining partnerships to build accelerators, for example. And in some areas, it might be, financial assistance. So the role will always be, regardless of whichever area. Talent is a huge part of that. We view ourselves as ultimately Malaysia has got talent, and our role is to continue to unleash that talent. And so today is one of that example. It's unleashing the talent to realize the full potential of the country.
And Marcus, I guess, on your journey, it's well documented in the crypto space. Still, why Malaysia?
So yes, you refer to the tough journey in Malaysia and so on, but I think what's worth pointing out is our entire industry over the last 5 to 7 years has been pretty challenging everywhere, and it happens because it's something completely new. It's something that a lot of people don't understand. It takes a lot of time. I mean, if you think the Luno, people who work for Luno, all of the Lunauds, we spend every minute of every day learning about cryptocurrency, and we still don't know everything about it. If you're a regulator or someone working in the bank, you'd be lucky if you can spend 1 day a month or half a day a month doing it. So that takes a lot. There's a long education curve, and I think some of the challenges that you mentioned in Malaysia are not unique to Malaysia. Having to get the right bank partners that understand risk, but at the same time that also are innovative. Getting the right regulatory frameworks in place. And so I think, the story of Malaysia is really a proxy for the story of our industry. It just so happened that Malaysia has been very progressive, and that hasn't been an accident. I don't know if you know, but I used to work a lot in Malaysia, many years ago. I had a lot of clients in Malaysia, spent a lot of time here. So it's not some coincidence that all of a sudden we're like, oh, randomly pick Malaysia. I was living in Singapore, and we knew how innovative Malaysians are, both individuals in terms of early adoption of new technologies. We knew how how innovative the regulators were with a lot of initiatives that were brought out here before Singapore and other places in the region, like e-money licenses and all kinds of licensing. So it was very deliberate. We knew this would be a good place to really persist and to build, frankly, a case study for what it can be if everyone can work together and move forward. So again, it's generally been challenging, but if you look across the world now, you are starting to see that change. You are starting to see regulators regulating. You're starting to see bank partners working closer with crypto companies. And so I think we've reached that tipping point where you will see over the next couple of years things starting to move a lot faster, people working together a lot more. And maybe a big part of that will hopefully be the story that we're starting to tell today about what can happen if everyone works together.
Well, thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Surina, for